Hi, Emma. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
So, last week we started our TFCBT parenting sessions. So far I've been working with Sally for the past couple of weeks, and now I'm starting to implement more sessions with you to just help her at home. And so last week we discussed the CBT triangle. We did some psychoeducation on that. So do you think you could remind me what is represented in the CBT triangle?
I think we talked about like thinking and like how that like kind of impacts our behaviors, but I think that there was a part I was missing.
Yeah. No, that was perfect. So thoughts, behaviors, and emotions.
Nice. Okay.
Yes. And so we talked about that and just how they're all connected and how Sally is expressing those different things from her trauma and might be behaving differently at home since she experienced that incident. And so the reason after she's experienced that, her emotions and thoughts and behaviors are all mixed up and they aren't the same as before the trauma.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what we talked about last week. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I guess I'm still just kind of confused because I feel like ever since Sally went through her traumatic experience, and since she's been in therapy for a few weeks, I just thought that she would be getting better sooner. I'm just kind of confused at like why things are still really difficult at home.
Yeah. So that is a great question. And so I understand that it might be frustrating that this process isn't happening fast enough. And I think at the start of this, I told you that it was going to be about 20 sessions, aiming for that, and we've only had like 5 with Sally. And so her brain, since the traumatic event, has been altered, has been changed. And so in the past, if something happened, like she scraped her knee or she broke a leg or something, she might have gotten over that faster, but this is like an event that has like altered her brain. It's like when you break a knee or break your leg, it takes time for that healing process. And so sometimes kids bounce back really quickly and sometimes they don't. And so this is just how Sally is healing. Her just process might be a little bit slower. And so, yeah, it's just remembering it's a process and to be patient. And so it perfectly leads into what our session is today. And so I wanted to ask you, what do you think of when you think of praise, like praising your child? What does that make you think of?
I guess like telling them that they're doing a good job.
Yeah. Do you see yourself using praise with Sally since her incident? Do you see yourself using it more or less?
I think I use it a lot less than I did before because she just hasn't been doing a lot of things that are like worthy of being praised.
Okay. Do you have an example for me?
Of when I used praise or when
of when you haven't been using praise? Like what has she been doing that you say doesn't deserve praise?
Well, I mean, she's just had a lot of like behavioral outbursts. She's like been pretty aggressive with her other siblings. She's like running out of her classroom at school. And there are just a lot of different things like that have been making my life more difficult. And so I feel like I don't concentrate on things that are good about her anymore because I've been so concerned about all the things that she's doing wrong.
That makes sense. We don't want her running out of the classroom. She could get hurt. We don't want her being aggressive with other kids, especially her siblings, because they could hurt each other. So I definitely see how important it is like to recognize those behaviors. Because you want them to stop. That makes sense. So why do you think she has been acting this way?
Well, kind of based off of what we talked about last week with the triangle and whatnot, I think like like because of the trauma that she experienced, like everything changed after that. So I am assuming that it was because of that things have been getting worse.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. And also probably she just doesn't know how to manage her emotions and what she's feeling on the inside. And I think she probably is also wanting attention, and definitely addressing the things that she's doing wrong is important to keep her safe. But also addressing the things she does well could increase those positive behaviors. Does that make sense? And so she's probably acting on this negative behavior because that's where she gets the most attention. And so that's where it might be snowballing or increasing.
That makes sense.
Okay, awesome. I'm glad that makes sense. So maybe this past week, when was a time that you saw her do something well or good?
This last week, she put away all her toys without me asking.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you comment on it? Did you address it at all?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
That's
like right
okay.
before bed, and so.
Well, I'm so glad that you could remember that, because it's really easy to get caught up on all the things that we do wrong. And so I'm really glad that you were able to think back to that moment. That's awesome. So pretend I'm Sally and I just put all my toys away. How would you address that?
I would probably say, good job picking up.
Yeah. So you're specific. Good job picking up the toys, and you gave a positive, affirmation for her. That's great. That's great. One thing I was gonna mention that you didn't do, which I'm glad, is avoiding combining like a praise with like a negative something at the end. So, good job putting up the toys. Like, why don't you do that more often? Because it's kind of like how people talk about like a compliment sandwich. Like, you start with a compliment, add a negative, end with a compliment. But we don't want to add in the comment about what they did wrong because we're trying to increase the positive behavior, and it could bring in maybe shame or low self-worth if we add in the negative add-on. So I'm really glad that you just mentioned the positive affirmation. That's great. And so just continuing to increase and address those things that she does well, no matter how small. It could be, letting the dog back inside after being outside. Being like, hey, thanks for letting the puppy back in. That was like really good of you to notice that.
Yeah.
And so just even no matter how small, that can really encourage her. Yeah. And also recognizing that kids know like when we're being truthful and when we're not being truthful. And so remembering it like coming from your heart and that it is your daughter and she might be, acting a little different recently, but using the praise like with authenticity.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
I don't think so. That was super helpful. I definitely see the value in finding those different places to praise, because it makes sense that like you would want to draw more attention to like the good things and the bad things. And so I'm glad that we talked about this.
Awesome. Yay. Well, that's it for our session today, and I can't wait to continue talking about it and hearing how you get to implement it at home.
Yay.